You might be thinking, what does the USO in Israel, the USS Shenandoah, the Second Coming, and the Great Purification have to do with each other? Well, as the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, I am here today to tell you how those are all connected in my life, which helps me see myself and understand my soul's purpose. So, please like and subscribe. Please help me grow my channel. I'm sharing my free ebook, The 6 Divine Feminine Self-Love Strategies, linked below. It's your DIY trauma healing techniques, and there's also a meditation and drumming video. You can do it all for free. Let go of your therapist and embrace yourself, because you are the only person who has sovereignty over your soul, okay? And your soul, when it has wounds, you got problems. And when you turn those wounds into wisdom, your life gets better. So let's start with, why was I in Israel in 1995? So in 1993, I will share a picture of me. In 1993, I was in Tibet. And why was I in Tibet? I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies, and I went back to China after I got my undergraduate degree and traveled to Tibet because it was open in 1993. And I met my ex-husband there, who was traveling after he was in Beijing with Itzhak Rabin for the historic October 1993 visit between Rabin and the Chinese government, and then he went traveling afterwards. So let me share a picture of us at Mount Everest. It's on my poetry page on my website at carrieblazer.com. And, there we are. And that is Mount Everest back there. Okay, that's Mount Everest. And I will share my favorite travel story while I'm showing you a couple other pictures. Here's my cutest little boy in Tibet that I ever saw. And I have some more. I'll just scroll through the photos for you to see on my poetry page. The night before that photo, we went and we stayed at a Buddhist monastery at 17,000 feet before we were going to go visit the Mount Everest base camp. And the only way you could get to those kind of like remote places in Tibet then was to rent a Land Cruiser. So I was traveling alone, and I 4 Israelis and a German guy, I know, yep, life is life, all signed up for to rent the Land Cruiser together. And I was the only one that spoke Chinese, and the driver spoke Tibetan and Chinese. So that's why we were all together. So we pull up to the monastery, and we get out of the car, and a monk comes out, and we're like huffing and puffing because it's the altitude is really high. And he says, "We have wood." And Mark, the German guy, and I'm like, "What? How do they have wood up here? Like, we're way above the tree line. Like, we can barely breathe." And granted, their chests are naturally expanded to accommodate the elevation. Like, it's just how their genes adapted. So we're like, what? And we knew that in Tibet, they use yak dung to, it's me on the bus into Tibet. They use yak dung as fuel. So they take the yak dung, slap it on the side of the house, and then when it dries, it falls off and it's ready to use. So we went back, and the monk opens the door, and he says, "Wood." And Mark's like, "Shit." And I just start cracking up. I'm like 23, okay? I was tad irreverent, but I gotta love me some irreverent humor. So I'm cracking up, and Mark keeps saying, "Shit." So finally the monk says, "Shit." And so we knew that the next travelers that are going to come up there, the most mystical, spiritual experience of their life, Buddhist monastery on Mount Everest, right? And the monk comes out and says, "We have shit." Now that would have been a great YouTube video, but that was before YouTube. And here's the last. That's like one of my favorite pictures. So anyway, so that is how I met him in Tibet, and then we traveled together, and then I went back to Israel in early 1995, and I worked for the USO and AT&T, and I still have my little badge. I took a picture of it. Let me share that. Oops. How can I share that? Let me see if that's even possible for me to share. Mm, I think, oh shoot, I don't even know how to share that. Okay, I'm gonna have to cancel that share because I don't know how to share that picture on my screen. I only know how to share tabs on Chrome, but I could see, let me see if I can share my whole screen. Entire screen, share. Now, can you see that? Can you see over here, Carrie Blazer, AT&T, USO, Israel? I'm so glad I still have that, right? That's so amazing. So I'm going to stop sharing. Um, and I hope you were able to see that. If you can't, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. My tech skills aren't great. So I was in Israel in 1995. And I worked at the USO, so I got to go on the aircraft carriers and the destroyers and help everyone call home. And the USS Shenandoah came in, and I have evidence that they were in the Mediterranean at that time. This one I can share for sure. Um, okay, and here we go. So let me scroll back up, and I found that the USS Shenandoah. Wait, oh, that's not the one. Hang on a second. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Um, oh, there it is. So I went on ChatGPT and started looking at, the USS Shenandoah, and I thought it was 94, but no, I was in Israel again on 95 because we got married in 95 later that year. But it says crew memorabilia and photos from 1994 reference a 94-95 Mediterranean cruise. And that's where I met them. And, the USS Shenandoah was only commissioned for 13 years. This USS Shenandoah, it was decommissioned in 96. Okay. So, and, I was only in Israel, for about 6 months that time. And the port of Israel in Haifa, Israel is not always a US Navy port. So, this is the proof is in the pudding. My soul has a plan. So how is this all connected to the second coming and Mary Magdalene and everything? So my mom always had two names for me, Carrie and Shenandoah. Okay, we'll get back to Carrie in a second about how Ireland is connected to Mary Magdalene. But Shenandoah is a Native American name. It means Great Plains, the daughters of the stars. So when I heard the USS Shenandoah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go. And they had me on there anyway. But I was unable to get a hat because the store was closed. But I was like thinking back recently, like, oh my gosh, signs and synchronicities of what happened during what, first I called the Second Coming Enlightenment experience. And let me share my screen and I'll share my write-up on my website about that. Let me scroll back to the top. Second Coming. So I you know, I accepted that I'm the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene last summer of 2025, in September of 2025. And this is when in a couple weeks after I accepted, I had a huge enlightenment experience that I get into here. Um, uh, on September 27th, which is the Shabbat, the Sabbath between the Jewish New Year and the Day of Atonement. And that Sabbath is Shabbat, Sabbath Shabbat in Hebrew, Shabbat Shuvah, which means Sabbath of return. Return to what? Those days between the Jewish New Year and the Day of Atonement, the Day of Forgiveness, that's all right brain. It's all self-reflection time. Let's self-reflect on the last year, learn our lessons, and start a new year, fresh. And the feminine goes first. You have to surrender to your pain before you can climb your next mountain based on the laws of physics. Souls are energy bodies. We have proof now. So when the Enlightenment experience happened, immediately Native Americans came through and told me we have a soul contract to, write songs of manifest destiny for all of us to learn our lessons, come back together for the US government to learn how to interact with animals appropriate, like beavers and buffalo and wolves, are all keystone creatures, and everybody is focused on reducing carbon emissions, But how many people are talking about how much carbon is stored in the water of beaver dams? When we killed the animals, we killed Earth's ability to process itself, to sustain itself. You're not necessary. You're not necessary. Our cattle's coming through. Okay? So I knew in that enlightenment experience that these two events, that the second coming would also be a healing with Native Americans and then hopefully indigenous people worldwide, because it's not just about Israel and America, right? And so I was really hopeful for that, and I'm still very hopeful for that. You can go to my website and read the whole thing there. But so what I figured out was about in December when I had like kind of researched a lot of signs of the Great Purification. So let me bring up those signs before I draw any conclusions here. So where is those? Okay, I have those. So around the time I had that enlightenment experience and I was seeing that, in September 2025, there's a lot of prophecies that the Messiah will come back, and then there's a three-eye atlas, and then, the Hopi Native Americans, are seeing that as their blue kachina, meaning it's the time for the new world, like it's a whole purification, second coming. I was like, these might be linked. Okay, so then when it came through, I was like, this makes sense, right? So let's review in the Hopi Native Americans. And I was born in Arizona, where the Hopi Native Americans are from. Some signs and synchronicities showing me who I am. Okay, so the first sign was the coming of white-skinned men. Okay, yeah, 1600s, sure. Coming of spinning wheels, covered wagons, later automobiles. Strange buffalo-like beasts, European cattle that do not interact with the land in a way that sustains the land and the ecology in a healthy way. European cattle need different grass. Buffalo love the grass that have really long roots, so you need to maintain groundwater. Anybody hear drought, floods? Floods happen when the water is not, like there's not enough dams, there's not enough groundwater. No groundwater equals flooding. Look it up, okay? Snakes of iron, railroad tracks, okay. Giant spider web, the internet, telephone lines, electricity. Rivers of stone, concrete highways. Because, of course they're not going to have a word for the internet, in 1500s in Arizona with the Hopi tribe. That's not going to happen, right? A sea turning black, all the oil spills and stuff. Long-haired youth, the hippie movement of the 60s. Dwelling place in the heavens, a laboratory in space that falls with a great crash, like, we have the Skylab. And then let's get to the blue kachina. So the blue star kachina is, it'll be like the 9th and final sign before the day of purification. Well, the blue kachina was closest on December 19th. And that's the day YouTube showed me a video. So I finally understood what I was told in my enlightenment experience for the second coming and the Great Purification. And I was shown that they want to restore the buffaloes. There's a summer camp and a winter camp. And then there's challenges with the national parks. And can they use the national parks to live their native ways? And all these things came through. I'm like, so the video showed me that in Montana, where I've been drawn for the last couple years, that's exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening. They got a summer camp. They got a winter camp. They're moving the buffalo. And then I did more research. They killed the buffalo luckily, they found a herd of buffalo deep inside of Yellowstone. They're intuitive. They hid. We went from a few thousand buffalo. We're at 500,000 in America now. We have buffalo ranches, eat buffalo meat. And buffalo meat is healthier for you than cattle meat, than red meat, than beef. It has higher omega-3s and more lean fat. So it's the unsaturated fat, or it's a saturated, I can't remember which one, but it's the omega-3s, which is what's healthier. So, all of these signs and synchronicities that I didn't know was happening in 1995 was showing me my future. And that's how our souls communicate to us. That's how our souls help us see ourselves. The universe is a mirror. So when I remembered that I was on the USS Shenandoah in Israel, and how and that the ship was only commissioned for 16 years, and the Haifa port's not always a port, I was like, wow, my soul has a plan for my life. And it helped me really accept that my soul plans my life based on my wounds for self-improvement opportunities. We're here. We're souls having a human experience. I'm the only one that has sovereignty over my soul. Jesus forgiving me doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because technically, Jesus doesn't have sovereignty over my soul. My soul is the one that communicates through my heart, that calibrates my nervous system, that attracts my life events. The electromagnetic field is an attractor field. Magnetic is attract, right? So I'm just sharing these parts of myself. It's a lot for me to come out and say I'm the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene. That's gnarly. And my guy from my childhood is he's currently the head of global security at GoDaddy, former FBI, JC. You can look him up if you want. But I haven't talked to him in 40 years. I'm still talking to his soul. I reached out a year and a half ago, and then I had to heal rape wounds and gnarly stuff, and he had to heal because, I mean, our childhoods were very, very difficult. But, to quote Winston Churchill, who said, "It is said that famous men are often the product of an unhappy childhood." And that really helped me solidify that we take on major wounds to be able to extract major wisdom and knowledge. And we have to surrender to our wounds, find the wisdom within, knowledge within, and then climb our next mountain with that wisdom and knowledge. That's learning to surf the waves of life. That's moving through your emotions. Okay? So now I can move through my emotions all the time and I don't get stuck. People only get stuck in their emotions. They don't learn how to do that as a child. And then you have to reparent yourself, usually, the midlife crisis, right, that comes about. So I reparented myself. I'm 55. I started 10 and a half years ago on my 45th birthday, June 25th, direct opposite of December 25th. So, our souls have a plan, right? Like, I was born, you can also read on my website, and I'll share it, is that I have an astrologer who's also a Jungian psychologist. Incredible man, evolutionary astrologer, Jungian psychologist. And he did my chart. And I'm just going to show you one part that she says it screams divine feminine healer. Okay, let me find where that is. So I don't know if I put it in all caps or not. I don't know. I didn't put it in all caps or not. Okay. But anyway, you can read this, but it says it's like all over, concerning the Magdalene residence. This is the most telling as your Chiron is an air. It just goes into it, like the whole thing. I'm not an expert in this at all, but basically my North Node is Pisces and I'm a Cancer. Okay. So, and Pisces governs Christ consciousness, and that's my North Node. So, and how many years would June 25th provide this alignment, right? Well, when did the Catholic Church start to heal with Mary Magdalene? Oh, 1969, the year before I was born, they made her an apostle and stopped calling her a prostitute. Our souls have a plan. Okay, our souls have a plan. A year after I started healing in 2016, Pope Francis made her the apostle to the apostles. But now there's a lot of, because there's all this textual evidence now from the Nag Hammadi text that we found in 1945 about the early life of Jesus and Mary, and that, she was his wife. And Jesus was a rabbi. So rabbis had wives, and she was at the crucifixion. She was also at the resurrection. She, that was her man. Anyway, I just wanted to share those signs and synchronicities. I'm just sharing myself, having fun here, making my YouTube videos. So please like and subscribe. And there's a free ebook below. And I have my client services on my website if you need any help. I also have a book, My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain. And that is my story of how I healed. And I wrote and published that before I looked into all these different signs and synchronicities. And I mean, it was 2 months after my book where I even typed, did Jesus have a wife? I Googled it. Did Jesus have a wife? Oh, Mary Magdalene. Oh, right. Yeah. Huh. Like, that's what it was like for me. I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies, not Western religious studies. And so I went East for enlightenment. Enlightenment's an emotion. So please remember that only you have sovereignty over your soul. You are the only one you need to transform your wounds into wisdom. You are the only one you need to experience enlightenment. Okay? The ladder, the Christianity says that the cross is the only ladder to heaven. I'm here to say no. All right, take care. Bye.